So we're going to end the day as we always do with Mega Camp. So, and that is around wealth building. And Jay and I were brainstorming about who would be a good person to be up there. And finally I said, well, I think you would be. And your lovely wife, of course. So, so we didn't pre-interview ourselves before we did this, right?
Oh, yeah.
No.
So there are no notes to look at or say, hey, in our pre.
I'm the only one that didn't really. I wasn't in that conversation.
Well, it was a short
We
conversation.
didn't prepare either, but you did try to pre-interview me about 5 times.
Right.
Well, that was smart. Yep. So honestly, I'd really love, kind of the same way that David did it, I would really love the two of you in whatever way you want to tell your journey. But I would really love to hear the journey of your professional life paralleled with the journey of your financial life, and kind of your ahas and thoughts along the way. I mean, we could get into what are the 5 pillars of, but we could do that because you guys are that thoughtful about it. But I think it would be really instructive again for people just to hear kind of your own story of how that's evolved in your life.
Sure, absolutely. Well, so I'll start.
Yep, go.
You go right
Love
ahead.
it.
Well, I think it really started when Jay joined Keller Williams, to be honest with you. We moved to Austin, Texas in 2000, and he joined the company that year. And at some point that year, your first year in the business, Jay had the opportunity to take a class from Mo. I don't even know if you know this story, but Keller Williams at the time, they taught a class on how to read a P&L.
It was one of the AFT classes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Action-focused training.
And Keller Williams International likes to teach their people how to, be business people, just like they teach their real estate agents how to be business people. And so as luck would have it, Mo was teaching the class and Jay was the only one that showed up for the class. And so
The story of your life.
I know, right? I mean, it's hard to imagine Mo teaching a class and no one showing up, but there's only, 30-some
She
people.
was CEO at the time, too.
Yeah, she was CEO.
Yeah.
And so it turned into a conversation from reading a P&L to a conversation about tracking your net worth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember Jay came home and...
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
Before we get home,
Okay.
just note the kind of people that you got in business with. There's so many lessons since we've gotten to work with you. When Mo showed up, she's the CEO of this company.
Mm-hmm.
Only one person showed up for her class.
Yeah, I remember.
And her
I actually
reaction
do
was,
remember.
great. This doesn't have to be a class. This can be a one-on-one coaching session.
Yeah. Yep. That's
So-
who she is.
Yep.
Yeah. She
Immediately just sat down and moved beside me and said, you're really going to know this by the end of this hour.
Well, she has a real Well, she has a real passion for what you described, and that is helping people read P&Ls and think like business people and focus on building wealth. Yeah, she has a real passion for that.
And honestly, it was new to both of us. I was working for the state of Texas, and Jay was coming off being working and publishing in New York, and so he came home and he said we need to figure out what our net worth was. And I don't come from a business background. I don't come from money. We never talked about that at home, and so we sat down and we figured out what our net worth was.
Now, you guys were how old at the time? Just out of curiosity.
I think I was 29. And you were 31, probably.
31.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Right.
And
Okay.
so, I mean, we were both financially responsible. I know that like when we got married, we didn't have any credit card debt. We had very little school debt. We had learned some good principles about living within our means.
Yeah.
But my big ambition when you interviewed me, which is still even a year after this, I wanted to make salary.
Yeah.
I thought that wealth was about, my dad had been an executive. I thought you got wealthy because you earned a lot of money.
Yep.
And so this was the first dot in a line of lessons about wealth is something different. And do you remember what our net worth was that first time?
Yeah, it was like $2,300. And that included a used Toyota Tercel that we shared.
Yeah.
It was a very liberal assessment.
Which was worth $3,000.
Probably,
And then we had to deduct everything
And
else.
it actually caught on fire like 2 years later.
Yeah.
And so it was a big aha
By the way,
for
I
us.
think Jay actually set it on fire in order to.
Yeah, right? Yeah, so we could get that Camry.
Yeah, exactly.
And so for us, we thought, wow, we've been working collectively for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Because we both worked.
Yeah.
And we thought, wow, $2,300 for 20 plus years of work. This sucks.
And I've had a 401k the whole time I was in New York. I'd invested 10% of my income.
Yeah.
And you're doing all the right things.
Absolutely.
and you have almost nothing to show for it.
I think that the interesting thing when you say the right things, I think you were actually doing the right minimum things, right? You were doing
More
the
than
right.
most people, most Americans.
That's exactly right. That most people do the minimum,
Yeah.
and so most people think the right thing is a big thing, and it's actually a minimum thing, and they get a shock later when they, at some point in their life, either early or they get it at 65. I mean, it's somewhere they get that shock.
And I think the next big moment for us, so we got exposed to this. I don't know that it taught us anything other than we need to buy a house, because we bought a house really quickly
Right away.
after that.
Yep.
In the
I
right
remember.
area.
Yeah, luckily.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know about luck.
Well, it
but-
wasn't luck, yeah.
I don't know about luck at all.
But back then, I remember thinking if we went even one block farther south, I didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
Oh.
You should see the listing picture of it. It was horrible.
No,
Oh
yeah.
I know.
So that neighborhood, we
Little
timed it
two-bedroom,
well.
one bath.
Yeah.
Well, and I'd love to just talk
Location,
about that
location,
house.
location.
We bought that house. We only put 3.5% down because we didn't have any money saved. And that $6,000 investment, because the house was about $175,000. We lived in the house for 3 years, and then we turned it into a rental property, and it's been a rental property for 13 years. So somebody else has been paying down the mortgage. We owe about $100,000 on it now, and it's increased in value to about $525,000.
Yeah.
And so that $6,000 investment, 17 years later,
Yeah.
increased our net worth by over $400,000.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So that was the big lesson we got from that is like we're renters, we should be homeowners. And then we didn't buy that house like an investment property. I think we had you told us to buy the best house. The house we could afford in the best neighborhood, which was in Zilker, was that house. And then we started researching the Millionaire Real Estate Investor. And I got to ride shotgun with Heather E. Russo back then, and we interviewed 120 net worth millionaires.
Yeah. Well, a shift happened in your life, and that is you and I went to the bathroom and
Well, I started working with you.
and
yeah.
connected, and
Yeah,
that helped.
And
Yes.
and I recruited
I'm
you.
jumping past like writing MREA and all of that, but yeah, we started that relationship. But I remember when I learned your philosophy about money. So between the interviews and the first 120 pages of that book, I would come home at night and we'd be just kind of a buzz about this idea.
I remember.
Frankly, even back then, the company was a lot smaller, but you were still you. And you're like, oh, that's Gary. But then I would talk to like an immigrant who literally came to the United States with nothing and was a multimillionaire. And you started to think, wow, I think we could do this too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing that in working with you that I've always I've appreciated, admired, and count on is that you always immerse yourself, and that you're always a student, and you have this level of integrity about you that if you're going to write about something or talk about something, you dang well better experience it. You don't talk one thing and walk differently. If you were expected to write or talk about it, you were going to live it.
Even if it was failing forward.
Yeah,
in a big
well,
way.
of course.
I get you.
Well, of course, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting though is that this idea of wealth building was sort of a creep in our life.
Right.
Even though Jay was directly working with you, who you're obviously very passionate about it, and working at Keller Williams. And for me, I didn't really fully realize it until I actually became a realtor 8 years ago. So
Yeah.
it's this kind of creeping, dawning realization about the importance of wealth building for us. It wasn't like a lightning bolt.
And the possibility.
And the possibility.
And the possibility.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly
Well,
right.
it's a great word. I think whenever people have asked what's the biggest benefit you've gotten from being in this relationship with you and this company is that every time Wendy and I have thought we were thinking big for our lives, you've taught us that we weren't thinking big enough, which is a great ongoing lesson. And in this case, wealth building, I remember coming home and asking Wendy, like, do you want to do a plan? And we set a goal, and you have to tell me the year, but
I think it was 2005 where we decided, you know what, we were because we'd been tracking our net worth. That was the habit that we actually developed from the beginning, but we didn't really do much about it. We didn't set any goals around it. But in 2005, you were writing The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, and we decided to set some goals around it. And we set some, what I thought were huge goals. Like I look back now, they don't seem big, but at the time they seemed big. I was actually a stay-at-home mom at that point because I'd quit my job. Gus and Veronica had been born. And so we had made a goal of 10 rental properties, $75,000 in passive income, And
$1 million in net worth.
Oh, $1 million in net worth
In 10 years.
in 10 years. And really at the time, I honestly thought they were crazy. You know, I just was like, that's insane. There's no way we can do that.
I'm not sure I believed it either, to be
No.
honest with you. We just said, well, let's just do the first one, and then the second one, and then the third one. Like, let's see what happens as we go down the path. And it just accelerated it a lot faster than we expected.
Yeah.
So that year we decided to do a flip property. And I think we made, between the 4 partners, we made like collectively $2,000.
Oh, we had to
Without-
declare a profit, but we lost money.
Yeah, well, that didn't
That
include
was
any of
pure
our
accounting.
labor.
We got to pay.
You know, I remember I had my
education.
2 babies there. I was like planting bushes and painting and things like that. And so that was our first, well, our first failed,
Yeah.
investment, one of several. But then we sort of got the bug. Like I got the bug, and I think it was because, you know, my kids were getting older and I didn't have a job, and I'm not really someone who's good at just like sitting at home alone. So,
Right.
and it was also getting to be like 2005 and 2006. So it was easy to buy rental properties. So we ended up buying a bunch of rental properties, all of which I would never purchase again. Like I bought one off Craigslist. I don't know what I was thinking. It's like a 670 square foot house. Built in 1939 with a ton of stuff wrong with it, and yet I've made money on it, and my tenants have paid the mortgage for a decade now. And so that's, let's see. And
Well, I mean, the biggest challenge I think a lot of people have is, like, for us, it was coming up with down payments even back then. So we used partnerships in the beginning. And then I remember at one point just doing the tax returns, because you have all these partnerships now. We're like, okay, have we gotten to the place where we don't have to do that anymore, and we're the partners? And then we started looking at all of, I don't know what year it was, maybe 2009, when we started doing our annual goal setting retreat, which was a lot of it to get a handle around
yeah, I think it
all
was before
this.
then, but yeah.
Yeah, and just started asking where else is our money coming from? And that's where we started looking at profit share in addition to
And what time period is this?
2007 maybe?
Yeah, so our kids were pretty little, and we did what we call now our annual goal setting retreat. And our kids were little, so we took a vacation away, and we had all these questions that I'd just stolen from the internet or whatever. And it was like, what do you want our financial life to look like? What do you want our family life to look like? And we just never done anything like that.
Yeah.
And it was really very powerful for us. I mean, it was kind of another turning point in our relationship and in our wealth building journey.
And frankly, as a couple, I mean, I grew up in the South where we don't confront issues. And no, I mean, we just don't. You try to fix it, but to talk about it openly. And I remember, like, we had 2 kids born 16 months apart, and like the first question out of one of these, mouth wasn't about our finances. Like, what about our romantic life? And I'm like, are we
You were
actually
probably
going to
like-
talk about that on vacation?
You were probably like, yeah, what about our romantic life?
I mean, but it was such a great, like, okay, this is our chance to get really honest about what is and isn't working.
Yeah.
And what you discover is on the journey to big life, and I think someone said this with your admin, though I'm the admin in this relationship, to be clear, it's all about communication. Like, all of our conflict came because if we didn't take the time to get on the same page about where we were going, then we were going to fight along the way. And the moment we started doing this and getting kind of purposeful about it, and now we follow the 7 circles and the one thing as our guide for what's important to us about our spiritual life, and that's how we set 5-year and 1-year goals.
Yeah.
But it's become this thing. The millionaire happened. We learned you can grow in net worth a lot faster than you can in cash flow.
Yes.
Huge lesson. And we're like, oh, wow, it's going to take forever to get $75,000 in cash flow from single-family rental properties.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's why when we
That's
went out to
right.
the workforce, it's like, we need a business. Like, would you be willing to get in real estate?
Yep.
Like a cash flow business is huge.
Yeah, so we actually got to our net worth goal pretty quickly. So we got there in about 7 years. And but yeah, that passive income goal eluded us, and so then we decided, well, what's the best way to do that? And we need to start building some businesses.
Yeah.
And so that's what we started to do.
Yeah, business is a faster route, isn't
Yep,
it? Yeah, you can
absolutely.
do it through rental property. It's a tougher game
It's a business too, then, I think. If you're trying to get that much cash flow out of rental properties, it's become a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can do it, but it's a business.
Well, and now, we're 13 years into owning rental properties, and, there's cash flow there. It's just, I remember talking to Jim and Linda McKissick, and they said, after about 9 years, they started to see a big return. And of course, they had a much bigger portfolio than us.
For us, we benefited from Austin, but the number that comes to my head, and we'd have to go back and check, is around 5.5 years. You have this fixed mortgage. That, other than your taxes, that's pretty much fixed. And then you also have home values and rent values are going up. And it was somewhere around 5. I remember the fight to make these things cash flow wasn't as urgent. Like they were starting to just cash flow. Profit share, can we just go on that little detour?
Yeah, well,
or do you want to stay on the...
No, I love this, but I also just want to say again that you and I are business partners, and that we that was also, I think, a journey of realization where I watched you begin to become aware that your job can evolve into a business opportunity. And true for anybody in any circumstance. And I watched that with you. It's really odd. We had another partner, a writing partner, and the crazy thing was that individual, and we still love that individual dearly and miss him, didn't have that business mindset. It didn't understand that at all, and we watched that literally deteriorate in front of our eyes. For you, the opportunity was we got to become equal partners as a result of that, and you looked at that and realized we could actually do something with that.
Yeah. Well, now you guys have grown 3 businesses together. And I think as our net worth goals have increased over the years, like literally we had that conversation because we're behind on our net worth goal this year. We're like, well, we need to figure out another business if we're going to grow our net worth and create more passive income.
All right, you wanted to jump to, so I remember when you got in real estate, and I remember we were sitting on the couch talking about it, and the thing that I really loved about that conversation and respected a lot, it mirrored a lot of my personal values, Wendy, and that was you were ready. You were ready to go out and build a career business. But at the same time, you were a mom first. And I just remember the conversation of, I'm going to do it my way. I may make less money in the short term, but I'm not going to sacrifice what I currently have. That's more important than anything. And I remember that conversation.
Well, and I appreciate that. And you always been a big role model for me with that, because I know you did that with John, and
Thursdays at lunch at school. Was it Thursdays? What was the day you always went to lunch? And
Thursdays.
Yep. And I think a lot of people
milk
have
out of a carton.
A lot of people, especially moms, have that limiting belief about growing a big business. And actually, I don't know, Brandon or somebody said, I really respect that you do that. And it's just having your priorities in the right order.
You make less money in for a period of time because you're going to invest that in other people so that you have freedom, right? And you lived that. I lived that too.
Well, but the nice outcome of that is that it's actually easier to step out of production because your business has never been about you.
Yeah, that's right.
And my business has never been about me. I've always had people in my business right away helping me with everything. So pretty much every person I've ever had as a client, it hasn't been about me. So it's actually easier that way.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Yeah, that was kind of my same personal experience, and that is I realized real quick that if I wasn't going to sacrifice my health or my personal life, I was going to have to focus on leverage earlier than some other people would. Which meant that I lived in a smaller house or a lesser house than most of the executives I employed, and I didn't drive as expensive a car for a good period of time. And I still remember that when that flipped one day and we built the home that we currently live in, it pretty much shocked everyone that knew us. Because they had never realized that the money was there. I was just reinvesting it. And I watched you do that. And I watched you
absolutely.
I watched you do exactly the same thing.
We felt poor for a long time on this whole wealth building journey. Even when we were net worth millionaires and beyond, we still felt really poor because
Right.
instead of, Jay would get profit share from work, and instead of, buying a new car or investing money in our house, I mean, if you saw our 70s ranch style house, at one point it had carpet in the bathroom, and literally it drove me crazy. And one day, I have a 2 and a 3-year-old at home. I was like, Jay came home and I was like ripping out the carpet with my bare hands. And it's just because, we had the big picture in front of us, which
Yeah.
was like, we're going to reinvest in the business, do this, reinvest in rental properties.
People.
And we don't need all the accoutrements of wealth. And we still don't.
Yeah.
I drive a Volkswagen or whatever. And I don't care about that because I know, just like you did,
Yeah.
you,
Oh, yeah.
you know you're wealthy.
Yeah.
And you don't need to show it off to anyone.
No.
And I think in this business, it's really, it's a struggle. A lot of people feel that pressure where they got to have the BMW. And actually, I have a perfect story. I had a good friend over at the Southwest Market Center who was really struggling with leverage in his business. And so he said, I'm going to take you out for lunch. And so we got in his new Audi A7. And we drove to lunch, and he was saying, I just don't want to pay an assistant that much, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, we're sitting in your EA right now because you just bought this new car. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, we're sitting in your executive assistant right now. You get that, right?
That's awesome.
And what is it, how much money is this car going to make you?
Yeah.
Trust me, not
Yeah,
as
you
much
lost
as a
money.
great EA. So, yeah.
Exactly right. That's a great story, by the way. Okay, so you wanted to jump to profit share. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, that's the trick is in reinvesting in the business and people, which you've role modeled constantly about how long. I remember when you took the first big sums of money out of the business.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Oh,
it
yeah.
was the first time you'd ever taken $1 million out of this business.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, are you kidding me? And it was because you'd always reinvested in the next
Absolutely.
person, the next thing. And we tried to do our best to live that. And one of the big things that blindsided me was profit share. Because I started working in the company in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Every single year I had to sit in a profit share class. And it wasn't until 2004 that I ever got my first recruit. And I remember I was sitting in a restaurant, wasn't trying to do anything. We were talking about work. Our waiter overheard us and said, are you talking about real estate? And I'm thinking about getting my license, and I offered to take him to lunch. I paid $45 for lunch at Z Tejas. He got his license, sold one house. I got an $87 profit share check, and then he left to become a drummer.
Yeah.
And nothing happened for another year, but I remember that being that moment where I was like, oh wait, I just had to take someone to lunch, and I got doubled my investment.
Yeah.
I mean, $87 didn't change
Yeah.
our world.
Yeah,
I remember thinking, wow. And it was about that time that we had finished The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, and 3 things happened. My sister got in real estate, my wife got in real estate, and Wendy Patton, one of the investors, all she had to do was hear about profit share, and she got into Keller Williams.
Yeah.
And those 3 people.
Yeah, we met her through writing that book.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we've
very special in it.
really cool. She's an OP in the Detroit area now. And I think there's only 14 people in my first level.
Yeah.
Even when we got purposeful, like, I do work here. We do keep tough working hours.
You are
I'm
the
not out
co-author of
socializing
The
that
Millionaire
much.
Real Estate Agent.
Yeah. And I don't have a co-op deal every week, but we still happen. And, last year, together, we made about $31,000. And we just crested almost $150,000 lifetime. And it's gotten to the point where, we look up and I wish we had gone back and separated it out into its own account forever, because it was just getting commingled, and we were using that precious money on groceries probably. And I wish we had separated, because last year was the first year we really separated, and we looked at our ranch, which is the expensive thing we bought before we'd really earned it because of where our kids were. And I you realize that profit share paid entirely for our ranch last year. Like, this was a luxury item that we got to enjoy courtesy of this system.
Yep.
And so it's one of those things, like when you look at, I know Abe made you do an exercise about, it's like, and Linda did this exercise. It is, in terms of ROI on your hour, it's an amazing wealth building tool.
What's the best one anyone has?
It's unbelievable.
It's actually stunning. The rate of return. I did when we created the profit share program back in the day. I actually modeled that. I knew what Linda was going to discover when she did it, because I had modeled it myself, and what I was able to prove mathematically, that you could actually make more money recruiting than you could selling real estate. If you treated recruiting as a full-time job and you put down how much you make per hour, profit share was worth a lot more money than going and taking a listing. Than going and being a real estate agent. Now, we have a lot of people that that don't understand that, right? Wow. But what do you think, Althea? Is profit share a good thing? Yeah, it was. Well, and again, yeah, that's right.
Well, I had a big aha because at some point last year, maybe it was earlier this year, I just made a spreadsheet of all of our assets, and which we've always had, but we looked at the annual rate of return, like the historic rate of return for all of our assets. So we had our 401k and our 529 and our different businesses and things like that. And when I did that, it turned out that our profit share actually had been increasing 22% every single year since Jay had started at Keller Williams. And so then I did something else where I took the annual rate of return of all of our assets, and then I projected it out 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And that profit share, which was $31,000 last year, in 30 years is an asset that's throwing off over $600,000 in income for us. Mm-hmm. And this is an asset that we've barely spent any time on it. Like it's kind of shameful considering.
No, I understand.
I'm an agent that's well known in my community. Jay's a co-author of The Millionaire Real Estate. It was a huge aha for me, and it really actually shifted the way I look at my real estate business, because I think about, wow, what do I have to do when I manage a real estate business to make $600,000 in income? I'm managing agents, and there's liability, and there's stress, and there's headaches, and sleepless nights, and profit share just like boop, shows up in your bank account.
What most people never understood was the motivation. There were a lot of motivations for me doing it. One of those was I didn't want to be two-faced. I didn't want to turn to a real estate agent and say, I'm building a business, but you're not. You just sell real estate. I'm building it. And that felt horrible to me at a young age. And what I wanted to be able to say was, we have parallel financial opportunities, right? You can build your real estate sales business as big as you want, and our job is to keep knocking down the barriers to doing that. Simultaneously, you can own a business that you have no legal liability for, no financial investment in, or financial obligation whatsoever. And it's transferable through the rest of history. As long as we're in business and the money's there, the money is yours or your heirs to do what you want with it.
Well, you talked about this with Jen, and it's come up. I think there's a point where you start to hit your goals, and I think you did it long before that. We started to get it to where if you start focusing on building wealth for others, and if they're part of your team, like profit share made it completely concentric in this business, that if you focus on growing that, your goals and Mo's and all the shareholders' goals being met, but also everybody here is also.
Absolutely.
It aligns things. And
that's right.
I know in conversations with our mutual friend Ben, who everyone thinks of him as the internet agent, the expansion agent. He's actually one of the best people in terms of giving after you and Mo and Mary that I know. Like this model for a bigger life, so much of what your ambition has become about on the journey is okay, I think we're taken care of. How do we do this for other people? And what is all the good that can come of it? It becomes about what you can give away and create for others, which is, I've seen it, but it's so weird. You look up and you go, oh, wow, we're taking the first baby step to doing something that, you're going to, this, this month, you'll have given away $1 billion in profit share.
Yeah, it'd be $1 billion. Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah, well, I didn't give it away, but I created a system that gives it away.
And so we've got this opportunity to think so much bigger than what we personally want or need, and create a huge change in the world.
Well, here's the truth about that, and that is if you let's just talk about people, and that is if you cut a win-win relationship financially with someone, such that when they get what they want, you get what you want, the flip of your life is, from that moment on, you don't ever need to think about yourself again. I can't even remember the last time I thought about myself. I'm irrelevant to this equation. As long as there's a win-win financial relationship, it's all about the people you're trying to help. You're going to be fine if they succeed. If they fail, you're not going to be fine. But if they succeed, you don't have to worry about yourself. You don't have to be the the greedy hoarder or whatever, or right, you don't have to worry about it. It's going to be there.
Like Linda McKissick shared that she started focusing on the people in her first level, building their downlines.
Yes.
And it was easier for her to recruit for them than for herself.
Yeah.
And we started setting goals about how many millionaires we could create in
Yeah.
our world.
Yeah.
And when you focus on them, I mean, it's a whole different way of looking at the world.
Oh, trust me, your life changes dramatically when you call a meeting of the people that directly report to you, and they're all rich. There isn't anyone at that table that isn't financially extremely, that they're doing well, right? Yeah. And that's when you look up and go, okay, this is good.
Well, it just shows us the ripple effect that we can all have in everybody's life. And sometimes I just think about the impact you've had in your life and how you've impacted so many thousands of people, and they've impacted thousands of people in their communities. And
Yes.
we all have that ability.
We do.
You know?
We sure do. Yeah, the cool thing, I think for me, and I've drawn these circles over and over and over again, right? If you draw those 5 circles beneath you, and you decide that every one of them is going to be financially wealthy, and that you go to work for the people that directly report to you to build their wealth, everything happens, and it's the most fun possible
Yeah.
to do that, right? That's the greatest joy, is waking up every day helping people achieve their goals, knowing that you're going to be fine. It won't. You don't have to worry about yourself. They're going to take you with you automatically. If you were okay, so we're 2 minutes to close. So, and again, I know my staff is completely stunned that I'm on time. They made fun of me for years, by the way, because I never ended on time. I never started, and all this, And I finally got insulted, and my feelings were hurt, because that was actually, and we wrote about this in the one thing, that was kind of actually planned. It wasn't actually who I was. And so I kind of, my feelings hurt, and I said, well, I'll show them. I'll start ending on time every time. And I think they were stunned to discover I actually had the ability to will myself to get
I think
there.
you've got a fair amount of discipline and self-control.
Yeah, somewhere in there. All right, so if you were giving, so let's wrap this up. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. So let's wrap this up. If you were going to, Wendy and then Jay, if you were going to give anyone advice about wealth building in any of this, what would you say?
Let me think. So, wealth building advice. So, I would say, just start by taking one step, and that would be, if you don't own your own home, then buy a home. And if you do own your own home, you want to buy, maybe move up. So, keep your first house as your first rental property.
Yep.
And that's a great step.
Yep,
So.
absolutely. Jay?
I love the action step, because that's where we started. I think I would just encourage people to start up here. I think a lot of people struggle with the idea that they can be wealthy. I know we did. And just, start hanging out with people who are focused on wanting a lot more for their lives. I think that when you do that, it's going to rub off on you. I mean, we've gotten this amazing blessing of having you rub off on us, even if we were slow learners half the time.
It's mutual.
But it's huge. So start asking. It matters who you hang out with, and if people are on this journey, they're going to carry you forward all the times you don't know what to do.
Yep.
Like we learned how to, Mo and then you, and different. You'd always think I'd go back to MREI, but I forgot about Mo. Like I learned about net worth early.
Yeah.
It matters who you hang out with. And that's a number that we still track today, because it matters more than any other financial number. So I don't know. Focus on who you hang out with.
It's really funny. I remember interviewing an agent, and this is like 20-something years ago, and they were with Coldwell Banker. And at the end of the conversation, the person turned to me and they said, "Okay, so give me one reason why I should work with you than where I'm at."
Bless her.
And I thought about it I thought about it, and I hadn't thought about it that way, right? I thought about it for a long while, and I went, okay, because my goal every day is to help you make the most amount of money possible in your life, right? And I said, now, what about your company? And they went, well, I don't know what their goal is, but that's not it. Right? Yeah. And the great joy of wealth building is that it actually comes from helping other people become wealthy. That's the trick. All right, you guys, this is it. We're done. Thank you.
Thanks.
He doesn't show up anywhere.